Hello, everyone. Harry Baldock here, editor at Total Telecom, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Roshan Thekkekunnel, Group Manager for Hybrid IT Telco Solutions at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Roshan, how are you doing today?
Good, Harry. Thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. We're here today to talk about the value of interoperability when it comes to 5G and kind of more generally the vendor ecosystem. So my first question today is, what was HPE's motivation for entering the 5G market?
Sure, I know that's a very relevant question. If you look at the history of HP has traditionally been a leader in the IT infrastructure space. We've been leading with innovative solutions for the enterprise market with the small, medium enterprises. And we have been a big supplier of IT gear, open x86 platforms to the IT side of the telco customers. Now, a few years back, as the telco networks, the core networks, started moving into more open x86 platforms, it was a natural, transition for for our customers to look at HPE as a leader in the space. To come up with solutions that will virtualize their network functions. And this was the NFV movement that started back in 2012, 2013. And, we were fortunate to be at the forefront of that change as customers started deploying virtualized network functions, and we got the virtualization technologies from the IT side into the telecom space. Now, as we are moving into the 5G segment, we are fortunate to be in a position where we have a lot of experience deploying the 4G networks, the traditional 3G networks with virtualized functions on open x86 platforms. And that is the key building block of 5G, because 5G is all about microservices running on virtualized platforms. So it's a natural fit for us. It's a natural transition, and all the work we have done over the last 5-6 years building these networks, these virtualized networks, is now being brought to bear as we go into the 5G era. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for our customers to completely reimagine their networks, and we are in a position to help our customers make that transition.
So how do you see HPE in the greater context of 5G deployment?
No, thanks for that question, Harry. I guess the way we look at it and what we have been doing for the last 5 years plus is when this entire movement of virtualization came into the telco networks, what our telcos were basically looking for was this decoupling of the hardware and the software layers. And over the last few years, we have really matured that technology. And it's proven to kind of start showing the benefits of this decoupling and the virtualization for our telco customers. Now, with this decoupling, there's obviously a lot of risk that is introduced into the telcos deployments, right? And that is fundamentally the area that HPE has been trying to address. It's not just about deploying hardware, but essentially working out the optimized stack, working out the acceleration and the performance that needs to be done while you're decoupling the hardware and software from your traditional monolithic, vertically integrated stacks. And that's fundamentally the area where HPE has been investing in, has been helping our customers through the journey. And that is significant for our telco customers. That's what they value when they engage with HPE. Now, as we go to 5G, it's essentially taking that a step beyond. You're going into a container native world with microservices, further disaggregation. And if you look at really what's happening in the 5G networks, it's taking those same concepts of disaggregation in the core network all the way to the edge and now into the radio access networks. Things like Open RAN is picking up. And again, the principles are the same. What you're trying to do is break open these proprietary stacks and have open platforms, open solutions. And that essentially is insourcing risk to our telco customers. And where HP comes to the picture, and what we want to do is ensure that as we are decoupling it, as customers decouple their networks to get the agility, to get those benefits, we are in a position to de-risk it by solutioning it, by doing those tests and validation in our labs. They are confident that they can do this kind of decoupling as we go into the 5G era. So that's, in essence, if you ask me in one word, what is HP's value proposition for infrastructure solutions? It's all about de-risking as customers decouple their networks and go into more open and interoperable platforms.
One of the things that I found really interesting was back in July, you announced the 5G lab. Could you tell us a little bit more about that facility and the kind of work that goes on there?
Absolutely, and I'll probably broaden the scope to all of the lab activities that we do there. But very specifically, as we have started this transition that I mentioned around virtualizing network functions, a lot of our customers came to us looking for proof points, POCs, things of that nature that will demonstrate some of these advanced technologies, right? And with that in mind, we had invested in a lot of lab facilities that will essentially, try out some of these new advanced technologies, will bring in partner vendor ecosystem solutions into our labs to show a full end-to-end stack. And this is primarily the goal of the 5G lab. There's a lot of assets from the HP organization around the 5G core services. There's the infrastructure solutions from HP. And then we invite partners, especially the solutions that our customers are looking for, to come and integrate these solutions in our lab so that our customers get a view of how these networks would perform, what is the kind of performance metrics you can expect, what is the kind of functionality you can expect. And it's been quite a tremendous success, because with 5G, there's a lot of unknowns, and that's what we are trying to address in our labs before customers take the risk of deploying it in their labs. So it's been a success. In addition to just the full stack, we have labs that work with a lot of traditional net vendors. We test their solution stacks on our infrastructure. There's a lot of work going around, network acceleration, data packet acceleration, which is fundamental for these telco workloads. So all of these are activities that we undertake in our labs. And it's something that we give access to our customers. They can remotely log in, look at all of the work that's happening in our labs, and it's proven to be very effective and very popular with our customers as they go into their deployments.
So it's certainly all about collaboration and kind of working together towards that common purpose. In terms of interoperability when it comes to 5G, could you speak a little more about what that is specifically and why that's an important thing for telcos?
Absolutely, and it's an area that we have been hearing a lot from our customers. It's always looking at the customer problems and trying to address those. Now, as we started looking at the evolution of the telco networks a couple of years back, when 5G started coming into the discussions, it became quite apparent to us that 5G will fundamentally change the way the networks are being deployed. You're seeing a lot of compute being deployed at the edge of the network, where traditionally it used to be in the core data centers. And it has to be at the edge because you need some of these low latency applications deployed closer to the subscriber. So fundamental changes like that would mean you need different kind of infrastructure, different operating systems, different sort of acceleration technologies at the edge versus what you have at the core. So it's quite apparent for us right at the outset that the kind of homogeneous vertical stacks that were traditionally being deployed in the past will no longer be applicable for 5G networks. You will have heterogeneous hardware, a certain stack in the core network, certain stack in the edge. You will have a high scale of distribution. Meaning we are looking at hundreds to potentially thousands of edge sites in large countries around the globe, and a telco has to serve all of these different sites, and they wouldn't have the kind of IT personnel to go and service each site. So a lot of the challenges around maintaining these edge sites, doing your regular IT maintenance and upgrades on these edge sites is another challenge that customers have to face. And then the multi-vendor nature of the solution. Now it's very critical not only from flexibility and choice perspective, but also from a innovation perspective. Tomorrow if a vendor X has the latest and the best technology in their hardware or in their software, a telco should have the ability to integrate it into their network without having to completely change the entire management stack, right? And that was a fundamental problem or an inhibitor that a lot of the telcos were talking about when it came to 5G deployments. So 2 years back, we looked at these problems and we made a conscious decision to try and address this. And that's when we started the open source project, ODIM, as we call it, the Open Distributed Infrastructure Management announcements that we made earlier this year. This is essentially around managing multi-vendor distributed heterogeneous infrastructure. And the way we addressed it is it's not an HP proprietary solution, or Intel, who's one of the key players or the sponsors behind this initiative, but looking at an industry standard way of abstracting the hardware layer, right? And the industry standard we looked at was the MTF Redfish spec. And we looked at how we can essentially have a software abstraction layer over all of the infrastructure that a telco might deploy at the core site, at the edge site, and have all of that information bubble up to their centralized management solutions. And that is key because we see the need for multi-vendor solutions at different sites, different operating systems, different processors, different acceleration technologies. And if there's a consistent way of sending that information and managing that information, then it doesn't really matter whose hardware or whose software is deployed in these networks. And that is what, when we took this concept out to our customers, it resonated with all of our customers, because all of the operators were completely aligned with this approach. This is the way to take the risk of deploying and making the investments in 5G and having it ready to evolve as the standards change. Because with this kind of a standardized approach, it doesn't matter if the technology changes, if there are new specs, new standards coming in the future. The standardization layer is where you can essentially abstract away all of the complexities. So with that in mind, we started working on it. It's been launched earlier this year with the Linux Foundation, the ODIM project. There's partners and suppliers signed up for it, and we are beginning to build traction and momentum around this initiative.
So would you say that this approach is almost a different way of thinking about the vendor space? It's less of a hierarchy and more of a kind of a pool of peers. Is that fair to say?
That is correct, because really, if you look at 5G and if you really look at the tremendous innovations that are coming in this particular space, it is important for a vendor like HP, and for that matter, any vendor, to start collaborating and integrating solutions from the entire ecosystem, right? And that is where, traditionally, where you have monolithic vertical stacks from vendor A or vendor B, the entire movement around NFV and virtualization and 5G was to have these open platforms that are agile and can integrate solutions from big and small vendors alike, right? And we see that as not only an opportunity for HP, but an opportunity for the industry as a whole to completely reimagine the networks, to bring new services to the telco customers, subscribers, And for that, it's key to get that interoperability, to get that that ecosystem all participating in this journey. So we think it's the right approach. We're hearing from our customers it's the right approach. We have a lot of new players, new startups participating in this ecosystem, and we're hoping to build that momentum and have some proof points here shortly.
So to talk a little bit more generally about 5G, where do you think the greatest opportunities are for operators? Is it from the kind of the mobile customers themselves? Is it in industry, or is it somewhere else?
It's definitely at the edge. Meaning, if you look at what 5G is fundamentally bringing to the table is the ability to deploy compute closer to the subscriber, whether it's your end mobile subscriber, as you mentioned, or enterprise customers with manufacturing or any of those verticals. But fundamentally, it's the ability to have compute much closer to the subscriber. That then triggers a host of new opportunities, new services, right? We talk about, and there's a lot of buzz around smart cars and AR and VR. But what we are seeing in the industry is, even things like gaming, it's reached a completely different level with the ability to have real-time responses coming in for some of the gaming applications as well that is deployed in the edge. So to your question, Harry, I think, and this goes back to the earlier point, what we are fundamentally doing is democratizing that environment or that industry. We are putting an open platform, open solutions at the edge of the telco network. And what the telcos are looking for is inviting all of these new service players to come and participate in that ecosystem and innovate and bring in new services. We have started seeing the beginnings of things like gaming. Smart cars has always been in the realm. But even things like AR, VR, manufacturing companies, they are all participating now in this ecosystem. And it's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of these small startups with really innovative solutions. And it's across the spectrum from individual subscribers to enterprises. We are seeing a lot of activity that we think will really change and will bring in a lot of new services for telcos.
Definitely a really exciting time for 5G. Roshan, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Harry. Thanks for having me here.